Professor O'Connor, thank you so much for your precious time. And we are really delighted to be back to Suzhou in this beautiful city. What attracted you to working in a university in China and to Xi'an Jiaotong Liverpool University in particular?
Okay, well, it's a very unique institution, and it's quite simply an opportunity that you simply don't get now in Europe or North America, or at least very rarely. The chance to really establish a new university and have the funds to do it is an incredible opportunity. It's irresistible, really. And also, XJTLU, as we call it, is quite a unique institution. You know, we're taking what we hope will be the best from Eastern and Western cultures and sort of mixing them and melding them, and hopefully making something really quite special in terms of higher education. So really, I couldn't resist this, and I think everything that we have expected has turned out to be the case.
What do you see as the challenges in teaching here in China?
Well, surprisingly, they're not really language challenges, although of course there are problems there, but it's more cultural. One has to adjust one's teaching style to the sorts of students that we have. And really, because we're an international university, that means that we can't have just one single teaching style. We really need to blend a variety of teaching styles. So, of course, we have quite a few mainland Chinese students, but we have quite a few international students as well. So you really have to sort of try to develop almost a systematic knowledge base of what works in this new environment. So for many students, for example, asking questions to a large class doesn't really get a large number of answers. People can be quite shy about sort of responding in this situation. So we have to sort of develop sort of tricks that work to sort of encourage people to speak under these conditions.
Xi'an Jiaotong Liverpool University is situated within Suzhou Industrial Park. Is that an advantage?
It's an enormous advantage. SIP, as we call it, Suzhou Industrial Park, was developed initially by the Singapore government. So in a way it's kind of like a small part of Singapore in China. And it's attracted blue chip companies from around the world who really want to make a success of it. And they have an investment fund, and some of that money goes into universities in the area. So more generally that's fine, but equally in terms of sort of my specific area, it's a really very attractive proposition. So for example, we have BioBay, which is a biotechnology hub, and there are over 200 companies there. But we also have something called Cold Spring Harbor Asia, which is a major conference centre. Biologists will know that Cold Spring Harbor is a very august institution in the United States. Its director until recently was James Watson, for example. They've decided to set up shop in Suzhou as a major conference centre, which is very attractive because it means that we get students who can get talks from North Americans, Europeans passing through of the really highest calibre. So again, this really helps us.
Does it mean that biological science students have a natural target for employment? For example, is it easy for them to get a job with biotech companies?
Yeah, I may have already mentioned BioBay, this biotechnology hub, and obviously there are some that go there, although actually most of our students go on to graduate school, so over 90% of them go on to graduate school internationally.
Internationally?
Yeah, so for example, we have students at Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, University of California, and so on. That seems to be the trend.
Is there a growing trend for teaching in English in a university in China?
Well, certainly in terms of science courses and business schools, there certainly is. I think that teaching in English is going to continue for some time. But I think what's more interesting is the sort of cultural differences and the cultural trends. So there seems generally to be winds of change blowing through higher education, and China's no exception. It's picking up on this, and you're beginning to see sort of Chinese universities adapt to these new ideas, online courses, whether they can perhaps integrate them into their teaching and so forth. So yeah, very much so.
What are the conditions like for research?
Generally pretty good. I've been really remarkably surprised by how easy it is to get support, providing the ideas are sensible. Of course, the streets aren't paved with gold, you still have to make a logical case, but generally the support is there if you're coming up with reasonable ideas. So, for example, the National Natural Science Foundation of China will accept grants in English, which is enormously helpful for someone like me, whose Chinese is really rather poor. And they are a relatively transparent organisation. So, for example, they invite members of the National Academy of Science in the United States to inspect them every so often and to publish a report. So I've been very impressed actually at the way they organise their affairs. And of course there are plenty of other types of money around, both at national and provincial level, and indeed at local level as well. So generally there is a reasonable level of support.
Obviously you must have a very, very busy life. How do you relax?
Well, we're still busy exploring this area. As you know, Suzhou has an enormous cultural history, and there's just so much to learn. Apart from the obvious things like the gardens, which are sort of World Heritage Sites, there's an incredible amount of stuff as soon as you dig lower than the surface. So my wife and I sort of continue to explore the area, its cuisine and its people, and that I think will continue for some time. Of course, more generally, China is such an enormous country that you could spend your entire life exploring it and really just scratch the surface as well. So that's pretty much it.
Professor David O'Connor, thank you very much for your precious time with the Voices from Oxford.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.